I'm going to.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to give everybody a couple of minutes to filter on in. Welcome to our virtual class today. It is called Raising the Chocolate Bar, and this class is going to be chock full of tips and tricks for elevating your Easter game. We wanted to teach you some things that maybe you didn't already know, some technical tips to make your Easter even more amazing than it could be because you have a Thermomix. So welcome on, everybody. We're going to be together for, I don't know, between 45 minutes and an hour. And this class is all about serving you and teaching you some new things. So the more interactive you are, the better the class is going to be for everybody. So there is a chat box down the bottom. And the more questions you ask, the better. One of us will be monitoring that chat box and we'll try and answer them as you go. And so we'll do a little practice, shall we? I want to know your name, where you are in the country, and what have you got at home? Have you got a TM6? Have you got a TM5? Have you got a TM31? Or are you not an owner yet? Did you see what I did there? So pop that in the chat box for me. Also want you to be aware of the fact that it's a good idea to keep yourself on mute during the class, because whoever is talking pops up in the big box in the middle of the screen. And if you're not cooking, that'll be really embarrassing if it's you. So keep yourself on mute. Also, up the top right-hand corner, there is a little button. You can toggle between speaker view and gallery view. For cooking classes, it's better to be on speaker view because that means you'll see whoever's cooking. So welcome to our class. Really looking forward to spending this time with you. And yeah, we hope it's of service. So we're going to crack right into it. And I'm actually going to spotlight my other camera because I am the first person who's going to cook. So let me move on over there. Hi everyone, back again, and I'm with my Thermomix, and I'm going to be showing you today how to make the Easter cream pastries. So this is a cookie dough recipe. It's on Cookie Dough UK. So when you are searching for this recipe, you do need to include the UK in your country filter, not just Australia, because otherwise you won't have it. And so this recipe actually starts by making choux pastry. Now, choux pastry is one of those things that apparently is super hard to make if you don't have a Thermomix. So I can't say, because I've never made choux pastry without a Thermomix. Definitely not something I would have attempted pre-Thermomix. But with your Thermomix, it is incredibly easy. And so we're going to make some choux pastry together. So the first step is to pop 250 grams of water into your Thermomix. So with the TM6, your scales pop right up, and we're going to weigh in 1 gram increments. We're just going all the way up to 250. There you go. Then we're going to add 130 grams of butter. It says unsalted, but I just use whatever I can get the countdown. So it's cut into cubes and it's going straight into the bowl. And we need 2 pinches of fine sea salt. There you go. 3 teaspoons of sugar. So I've got that weighed out over here. And then what we're going to do is, instead of popping the measuring cup on top of the lid, this one, we're actually going to use the simmering basket. And this is a safety feature with the Thermomix. Because we are cooking over 95 degrees, we use the basket, not the measuring cup. And that's to allow steam to be able to escape while it's cooking. For 5 minutes, we are going up to speed 1. And while that's happening, I'm actually going to hand you over to so that she can tell you what she is cooking today.
Everyone, I have just brought up the recipe on Cookie Dough for brioche hot buns. So I'll get started on these. We've got a little bit of a twist with our hot cross buns today, so I'll explain that as we go. But I'll just put that down so you can see my screen. I've brought up the brioche hot cross bun recipe. There's quite a few recipes for hot cross buns in Cookie Dough. This one's my favorite. I've made a few of them. It's certainly, yeah, it's the one we enjoy the most around here. So it's saying to pop a bowl on top of the mixing bowl lid. So we're just using the scales, and it wants us to weigh in 130 grams of unsalted butter. like Odette just said, she doesn't bother whether it's salted or unsalted. I just get butter as cheap as I can find it these days, and generally it's salted, so that's fine. I've actually weighed that out earlier just to save us a little bit of time today, and set the bowl aside. So now what we're going to do is put 200 grams of milk into the bowl. So I've measured that out. I've actually made these with almond milk and regular cow's milk. I can't tell the difference with either. But in fact, I have been making some sourdough ones lately, and I find they're better with almond milk. So if you've got almond milk, give that a go. It's asking for 50 grams of sugar. So I'm using coconut sugar. Just a little bit nicer in flavour, a little bit more caramelly, and obviously it's not refined. 2.5 teaspoons of dried instant yeast. So I didn't measure that out and put it in a ramekin away from its packet because I thought I would show you. This is the yeast that we swear by. So for all bread baking, it's tulip yeast. It's imported from Turkey, and I get mine at Bin here in Nelson. But yeah, any specialty food store might be able to get it for you. It is so not temperamental, which is great. It works every time, and we get nice fluffy bread dough, regardless of temperature as well. It's just a really nice yeast to work with. Cool, so we're going to pop that on for a couple of minutes just to activate that yeast on speed 2.
Sorry, you say that you were using the brioche hot cross buns. I'm just looking for the recipe so I can pop it into the chat box for everybody.
How about I do it right now?
Oh, there you go. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all heating up, and we're going to 37 degrees. Let's go and have a look how that butter of mine is melting. Back again. So we are on 2 minutes at the moment. And while that's happening, I'll give it another 2 minutes to go. What you'll see on the Thermomix screen is in that second dial, that's our temperature dial. At the moment, the big number says 100, and that's the target temperature. That's what we're working towards. And you'll see there's a little number, and that little number says 98 at the moment. That is the actual temperature in the bowl. And so sometimes people go, well, my temperature doesn't get to the target temperature. Is that okay? Is there something wrong with my Thermomix? It's perfectly normal. All these recipes have been triple tested in our recipe development kitchen. And sometimes the goal isn't actually to get that to that temperature. It's just to move it towards there. So just trust the cookie dough. The cookie dough is always right. So what's going to happen when this gets down to 0? So we've counted all the way down. As the Thermomix is going to call us. And we're going to add some flour. So this is just plain flour. So it's not baker's flour, which is what Lonnie's going to be using. Baker's flour's got more gluten in it. So it's that high grade flour, and it's for making breads and things. Whereas with the choux, we're just going to be using plain flour, which is more what you use in things like, I don't know, cakes or muffins or scones even. Yeah, so I've got about 43 seconds. And then we're going to add that flour. Now, the important thing with choux pastry is that once we add the flour and we mix that all up, we actually have to let it cool down before we add the eggs. So there's going to be a period of about 10 minutes before we add the eggs. Don't rush that part, because if you rush it and you try and add your eggs too quickly, the eggs will actually scramble while you're trying to incorporate them, and you're not going to get that beautiful, silky, smooth choux pastry. So this is not one of those you want to rush. While you've got that 10 minutes, go off and do something else, hang out with the kids, hang up a load of washing, beautiful sun today, or make something else if you've got another bowl. There we go. Right, so I'll show you what that one looks like. So what we've done is we've just melted the butter. I don't want to pour it onto the floor. And as I said, next step is to add 200 grams of plain flour. And then we're going to pop that back on with the measuring cup this time. And we're going to mix that for 20 seconds on speed 4.
While we're just waiting for that 20 seconds, shall I pop in my few bits here, Odette? So my milk, sugar and yeast is all heated up. And I'm just going to add 2 eggs. 500 grams of baker's flour, So this is grade baker's flour, like Odette just mentioned, I'd be using. I did have a question earlier when I was making these today, and I put them on my Instagram story about making them gluten-free. I am yet to find a good gluten-free recipe, but I promise I'll try and nail it before Easter. If anyone has any good gluten-free recipes, or if you've made the one in Cookie Dough and you've got any comments about it, I would love to have your tips and tricks.
So Lonnie, just before I go for 10 minutes, I'll just show everybody what that looks like. And the cool thing about the Thermomix with one of the most previous updates is we can actually set the timer on the Thermomix now. So if you pull down, there's a little tab up the top and you can just click on the timer, and I'm going to set that for 10 minutes, and it means that it will remind me to come back when I am done.
Cool. So now it's asking me for 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of nutmeg, and half a teaspoon of ground cloves. So I've just put all of them in there together and adding that. I quite like putting half a teaspoon of ginger in there as well, ground ginger, a teaspoon of sea salt. So actually, I'll show you this. I actually haven't weighed out my sea salt. So if you hit those 3 dots up there next to the next button and bring up your scales, you can actually weigh in anything that doesn't actually have the scales brought up within the recipe. So I'm just going to grab some salt, wherever it is. There, sorry. And put in around about 5 grams of salt. 5 or 6 grams will be your teaspoon. And then we'll pop the lid on and turn the speed selector to speed 3 to mix all of that up. Once it's all mixed up, we're actually going to activate the knead mode. So when it's kneading in the Thermomix, 2 minutes of kneading is the same as about 10 or 12 minutes of kneading by hand. So it certainly cuts out a lot of the labor. In fact, when I first got my Thermomix, one of the first recipes I did make was the hot cross bun recipe. And I remember thinking I never would have made hot cross buns if I didn't have a Thermomix. So yeah, I'll just show you, it's mixed up all that dough. That was 15. So before we need, within this particular recipe, it's saying to place the simmering basket instead of the measuring cup on the mixing bowl lid. Because we're not heating it, I think that's a fault, unless there's any other reason why. I don't know. Do you know, Odette?
It's interesting. I feel like it's because there's quite a lot of dough and it doesn't want it to come out the top, but I've never had a problem with it coming out the top. So yeah,
I haven't either.
I don't put the simmering basket on it.
In the last week, and I just leave the lid on. So I guess just remember, if you are heating above 90 degrees, then put the simmering basket on top, but it must be a fault in the recipe. So we're kneading now for 5 minutes. Once the dough's done, you actually hand knead in the dried fruit. Do you want me to show you now how to do the knots?
Yes, please.
I'm only saying that because I did pre-make a batch of dough. This actually goes to prove for about an hour and a half. So I pre-made a batch of dough and it's ready. So I may as well show you how to roll out the knots.
Definitely. What I've done is I've popped a link in the chat box to the artisan gluten-free bread. Apparently that makes really good gluten-free hot cross buns. So you just add all the spices when you add the gluten-free flour, and then just like you're going to do, you knead some dried fruit in after you've kneaded it, and then shape it into balls. And apparently they're amazing.
That might be my mission next week.
I reckon. You'll have to let us know how you get on.
So what I've done is I've put the bread, the dough into the thermoserver to proof, and I've also got out my silicone bake mat. That's fantastic when you are rolling dough on your bench because it wipes clean really easily and you don't have a lot of flour and bits and dough stuck to your bench. So it works out a lot easier. This makes 12 hot cross buns. I'm showing you knots today because I don't know about you guys, but I just can't be bothered piping crosses onto hot cross buns every batch I make. Well, that's one reason, but also we have family members who just will not eat a hot cross bun before Good Friday. So now we've got around that little rule by making hot cross knots. So I'm just using the dough scraper from the mix shop to divide the dough into 4, and then each one of those pieces into 3 to get your 12 buns. To be honest, it does make quite big buns. So you could probably make 16 rolls out of the dough. You will lose a bit of fruit. You will probably see on my bench, there's a few currants and raisins going everywhere. So this recipe does tell you to use whatever dried fruit you like. I have used, well, a bit of a mixture, raisins, currants, sultanas, whatever I could find in my house. So now that they're all cut up, I am going to roll them into about 20 to 30 centimetre logs.
I've just popped the link for the dough scraper up into the chat box because I reckon that is one of the most underrated items in the mix shop. It's $4.95 and it just makes it so much easier to work with dough.
It's good for getting dough out of the bowl, scraping it all out. I hate scraping the bowl after it's had the dough in it. So I've also got here a silicone make mat and a rose gold tray. So that's what I'm going to put my knots on when I've folded them.
Quinn's making pancakes.
Ooh. Someone not on mute. So here I've got the dough and I'm just literally tying it into a knot like you would a shoelace. And then you just join those 2 ends together. Make sure you do join them together. And then you've got a nice little knot-shaped ball to pop on your tray.
Those are so cute, Lonnie.
And so easy. Like, I'll never make basic bread rolls again without rolling them into knots because they look impressive and it's not hard to do. I will turn around so you can see how I do it from another angle so you're not watching me front on. No.
And I feel like even if they look a bit like the poop emoji when you first make them, once they rise in the oven, they're actually cute anyway.
They are cute. I reckon maybe the chocolate hot cross buns might look like the poop emoji, but I'll show you some that I baked yesterday. They actually look quite cool. So that's them when they're baked. But you'll see there, I didn't seal the ends down properly, so that kind of flicks up. So that's why I'm saying, try and make sure you seal the ends together really well, and then they stay all pretty, and you don't have to pipe across on them.
Did you say what temperature you bake them at, Lonnie?
Oh, I bake them at 200 degrees for about 20 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's just finished. And now we've got another 2 minutes of kneading without the measuring cup. And what we're going to do is take that butter, and the butter is what makes it the brioche. Well, it makes it the dough different from a normal hot cross bun dough. It makes it a brioche. So we'll turn that on for 2 minutes with the knead function going and slowly add the pieces of butter that we cut up earlier. This isn't straight out of the fridge. It's not super soft, but it's kind of, you know, room temp. And over the next 2 minutes, I'll just slowly add in all this butter, and that will be the dough done. And then we just have to hand work in all of the dried fruit.
Do you actually hand knead in the dried fruit? Because I cheat and I just put it back on knead mode and I actually knead it for another minute because I'm so lazy.
About that this morning. I was like, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Well, let's do it. Let's try it today.
I reckon I'm too lazy to hand knead anything.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, when you've got the knead mode, why would you?
Totally.
Yeah.
And so do you glaze those when they come out of the oven, Lonnie?
Yeah, I do. So you could glaze them with, say, a tablespoon of any light coloured jam, like a nice light strawberry jam or apricot jam, and a tablespoon of boiling water. Just mix that together in a wee ramekin. Or I use allulose, actually, which is a sugar-free sweetener. I'll just grab it. And I can pop in the chat box too. Sorry, it's quite a big bag. I'll pop in the chat box where I get mine from. So I use allulose, and that's works the same as sugar. So I'd probably put about a tablespoon of that and a tablespoon of boiling water in a wee ramekin and stir that up, paint it on with a wee pastry brush or paintbrush, and yeah, do that before you, after it comes out of the oven when they're still warm, so that it kind of sets on there all sticky.
I love that. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of people making some Easter knots instead of some Easter hot cross buns, because yeah, so much easier. So don't forget to tag Lonnie, Little Bear Food, if you do have a go at the Easter knots, and also hashtag them, show us your buns, because we have a little challenge going in the two teams and we want to see everybody's buns.
Such a good idea. I'd love to see what you're making. That's finished. And so I'm just going to go with Odette's recommendation. And what it is saying is to place a bowl on top of the mixing bowl lid and to weigh in 250 grams of fruit. So I've done that earlier, but instead of putting that in myself with my hands, like it's asking me to do, I'm actually going to go back to the kneading for 2 minutes, turn it on, and just slowly add this fruit. I don't think it'll need a full 2 minutes to knead it back in there. I mean, it'll probably need...
I reckon about a minute.
Huh?
I reckon you only need about a minute of extra kneading.
Yeah.
So while you do that, I have actually had my timer go off, and so I'm going to start adding those eggs.
Good idea.
There you go. So 10 minutes, we press next, pop the mixing bowl back into position and take off that measuring cup. And this time we're not actually setting a time on the time dial, which means the time will be counting up. We're going up to speed 5. And while that's happening, we're starting to crack the eggs one by one through the hole at the top of the lid. Once they're all in, you can stop the Thermomix, and it's just like a treadmill. If you want it to stop, all you do is press that big silver button. Then we're going to pop the measuring cup back in, and we're going to go for another 30 seconds on speed 5. Right, so we're going to show you how to pipe this time. There you go. And so what I've got is I've got a few mix shop items to show you. So we were talking about underrated mix shop items. This is one of them. This is the bag holder. And it's really great for when you don't have another person standing near you who can actually hold the piping bag. So we've got the piping bag from the mix shop, and we're using the Big Star tip. And we don't have to find a little human or a husband. We can just pop the bag into the little holder, and we are actually going to grab our shoe pastry and we're going to pop it into our piping bag. And then I'm going to show you how to pipe the shoe. So it looks like that, beautiful and glossy. And all we do is we just get it in here. And as I said, so good because we don't need another person and we're not going to end up with shoe all over the kitchen counter. These are also, I think they're about $5. And so definitely recommend you invest in one. I'm using mine all of the time. There you go. So we'll just get a bit of that in because I just want to show you before I pop them into the oven. So you also need a rose gold baking tray. The recipe says to line it with baking paper. You don't need to if you have the silicone liners. The silicone liners go in the oven. Obviously, if you put them in the oven repeatedly, this is what they look like. So well loved. But they do save you on baking paper. So they save money and they save the environment. What we're going to do is squeeze the shoe right down to the bottom. And now we're going to pipe nests. So let me see if I can show you. So we start in the middle and we just go around. There you go. Perfect. Do another one next to it. Nice even pressure. So we're going to do probably about 6 of these on this tray. After you've piped the initial disc, you're going to go around the edge and you're going to pipe a little basket. So just around the edge. And this is how we end up with the nest. Do another one here. Good. Once you have the nest, the recipe says to use a spoon, dip it in some water, and then use it to actually make sure that you have a beautiful hollow. I'm actually using the pastry shaper from the mix shop. This is designed to fit, the larger size fits in the large muffin or the normal size muffin tray, the rose gold, and the little one fits in the mini muffin tray. But the little one also fits perfectly inside the shoe pastry nest. So you just give it a little moisten with some water, and then you just use it to make sure you've got a little basket in the middle, and then you do the other one. So after you've got your little basket, what we're going to do is we're going to bake these in the oven, and then I'm going to bring them out and I'm going to show you what they look like before we fill them with the filling. And so while that's happening, I'm actually going to hand you over to Bridie so that she can teach you some new cool things.
Hi everyone, my name's Bridie. I'm based here in beautiful Blenheim, and Odette's just sorting out the spotlight. I am making tempered chocolate today, so I'm not going to dive too deep into all the technicalities about tempered chocolate, but just to let you know, it's quite different from just melting chocolate like you usually would. So they have completely different temperatures that they melt at, and it's very important that you melt it at a specific temperature, and then you get different outcomes. So obviously when you melt normal chocolate, it's still beautiful, but you get a different texture when you snap the chocolate. So with tempered chocolate, you get an amazing proper snap, and it goes really shiny and glossy, so it's really pleasant to eat. And yeah, you get a really amazing outcome with your tempered chocolate. I've done a lot of projects, food projects in my life, including shoe chocolate. I was just watching Odette saying, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. The last time I tried shoe chocolate, there were a lot of buzz and whisks and stress going on. I'd never mastered tempered chocolate before I had a Thermomix, but it is something where you would have, you know, bowls and double boilers and thermometers and things like that going on. So really grateful that I don't need any of that now. And you've got a couple of different options to figure it out with your Thermomix. So there is a tempered chocolate recipe off the recipe community. If you are new to the Thermomix, you'll see on your home screen, you can set your time, your temperature, and your speed manually. So you can kind of figure out how to do these things manually, or you can go bring up the recipes straight from Cookie Do and save them into your machine and use a guided recipe. Or you can pop onto the recipe community and there's a button to import a recipe. So really, really easy. Today I'm using a guided recipe, but I'm only using one little component of that recipe. So I'm just going to pop into my menu and my recipe, my week. And when my country Wi-Fi starts behaving, the recipe is called Hazelnut Caramel Bonbons Team 6. This one obviously has a caramel that you make, which uses the high heat function, which of course is unique to the Team 6. Now I'm just going to click the little arrow to bring down the recipe detail. And what I do is I just scroll down to find the step where I actually start tempering the chocolate. It's a really handy tip. So we've got a lot of dietary requirements in our family, gluten, dairy, the works, you name it, we can't eat it. So a lot of recipes I actually skip whole components, like when I do a whole steamed chicken, I skip the rub and the filling and I just go straight to the steaming the chicken, which makes it really, really easy to be able to skip ahead in a recipe. So I don't follow the quantities specifically, but just in a nutshell, when you're tempering the chocolate, you basically melt part of the, or some of the chocolate at a specific temperature. Should we just pop to Odette for a sec to show us? Did you want to show us? Here we go. Amazing.
Okay, so these are ready for the oven. They are going in for, it says 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to do 15 minutes and see what they look like.
Beautiful. That's amazing. Thank you. But yeah, so you only put part of the chocolate in. You'll find this guided recipe has, have the measurements figured out already. And then you'll melt that at a slow temperature. And then at the end, we may not pop back to me because we'll just kind of carry on cooking with the marshmallow and other exciting things. But then you put the remainder of the chocolate in and slowly stir it in without any further heat. So you actually want to cool the chocolate right down, and it's a really important step in tempering the chocolate. So I'm trying to put in just over half of the chocolate. It is really important which chocolate you use. Learn from my fails. Most chocolate goes a little bit grainy and you don't get that lovely snap, but Trade Aid dark chocolate drops are absolutely incredible. So
shut down.
Once you've figured out the ratio and things like that, it's really just like melting chocolate. I'm just literally putting that on for 2 minutes while I do other things. So, should we pop over? Oh yeah, you got it, Odette?
I'm going to spotlight the lovely Paula. I'm just got to find her quickly. There she is. Paula.
Hello. Am I there?
You are there. Yeah. We can see lovely environment behind you.
Sorry, I can just see you. Anyway, I'm going to be making sugar-free marshmallow, vanilla bean marshmallow. And you don't have to make this sugar-free, but I'm just going to show you how I do it. And it's just a simple swap is all it is. So if you don't want to do it sugar-free, just use what the recipe says, which is caster sugar. So the first step is I'm putting my bowl on top and I'm using the scale function of the Thermomix to weigh in my gelatine. Now I've actually already done that, which was 30 grams, and then I've added 140 grams of water. And the reason I've done it earlier is because you need to let it sit for about 5 minutes, and you'll see it's this is called blooming gelatine, if you've ever wondered, and that's how you bloom it. So you just absorbs something like that, the water, and yeah, so it's not a powdered gelatine anymore. It is like a gooey, gelatinous mix. All right, so from there, we're going to say I've skipped a few parts of this because it is a little bit of heating up and cooling down. And the reason why I love this recipe is, again, showing you how you can do something that normally is quite technical. I'd normally be on a saucepan with my temperature out because I've had some sugar. Well, I use sweetener, sorry. So I use allulose like Lonnie had, but you can just use sugar. I've heated that with 140 grams of water, and I've brought it up in the guided recipe. It brings it up to 100 degrees. So yeah, normally I'd have my thermometer out, wait till I get it to that degree, and then yeah, have to let it cool down. So I've got to the point where it has cooled down, and I don't know if you can see my screen properly, but if I go to the home screen, again, like Odette was saying before, in the middle, it's telling me what temperature. Can you see that, Odette? you can see what temperature it's actually sitting at. So I had brought it up to 100 and now it's been cooling down, and I had sort of been taking it off. You could put it in the fridge if you wanted to cool it down. It takes about 45 minutes to cool down if you were just going to leave it in the bowl. So I'm actually at the right temperature now, which is the 50 degrees. And then I'm going to go back into my recipe and skip all those parts because that's what I've done. And then start with the whisking. So that is still that, sorry. And so it cooked the sugar in the water for 15 minutes, got it up to 100 degrees. Then I let it cool down in the bowl until it reached 50 degrees. And then from there, we're going to add the whisk, the wonderful whisk, into that mixture. And I'll just show you what that looks like. So that's the water, the sweetener, and the gelatine, which we had did in the water in there. Cool down to 50 degrees, pop my whisk in, and then pretty much we're just going to turn it on. So I do put the lid in, and it's for 7 minutes at speed 3.5.
I reckon marshmallow is my top 5 favorite things to make in my Thermomix, because it's actually like magical how much the mixture changes between when you put that whisk in and what you get in the end. It's like when you open it, you're like, oh my God, it's so amazing. So definitely have a go, guys, at making marshmallow, because yeah, it will absolutely blow your mind.
I was just going to say, with the sweetener, I do double the whipping time, and I had never made marshmallow with sugar, and I was going to ask you, Odette, do you have to double the whipping time when you use sugar?
I whip mine for about 5 minutes. How long are you whipping yours? 7 minutes.
Mine's 7, and I actually do 14. So I feel like it must be, yeah, the sweetener must act a little bit different. So just keep that in mind.
Yep.
And then once it is all whipped, I don't know if we'll get back to that because it's going to take a while, but you'll see that it's nice and white and fluffy. But I have pre-made some, so I'm not sure. That's when I put chocolate on. I saw your little hot cross bun ones. They look awesome.
Nice.
And then this one here, I just dipped in some raspberry.
Perfect.
So yeah,
we probably will have time to come back to you, Paula, because I want everybody to see how magical the marshmallow is. And I can see that Bridie's ready to do some more tempering for us. So yeah, we definitely will come back to you soon.
Step is really basic. So I've just lit out of the chocolate. And it just went up to 50 degrees, and then the next step is just to put the remainder of the chocolate in and let that heat gently melt the rest without adding any more heat. So I just pop it on and slowly stir it without my hands.
I love that you don't have to use your hands. And while you're actually doing that, it gives me an opportunity to make the filling for my Easter baskets, because they're in the oven at the moment. They're going for 15 minutes. And so I'll just head on over there and I'll show you the filling that we're going to put in these baskets. Right. So I've got my other computer going and I can hear myself there. There's like this echo. So with the filling, I'm only going to make half of the filling. And the reason for that is with the shoe baskets, you actually can them really successfully. So if you freeze them, you bring them out of the freezer and then you just need to pop them back into the oven for about 5 minutes to crisp them back up, because they will be a little bit soggy when they defrost. So I'm going to do half of the filling, serve half of them today, and then I'm going to pop the others in the freezer, and it means that I'll have a really easy dessert one night this week. Ooh, let me fix it. There you go, better? Yes, good. Okay, so for the filling, what I'm going to do is I need 100 grams. It says 200 grams of cream, but I'm only going to use 100 grams. So 100 grams of cream, and this is just normal cream. And just like Paula, I'm actually using the whisk. So for those of you who don't have a Thermomix, high blades in the bowl and there are low blades, so higher profile, lower profile. The butterfly whisk goes just to the left of the high blade. That's the most stable place for it. And then we're going to pop 100 grams of cream, half of what it's asking for. We are going to pop the lid on and we have to whip the cream. Now, if you whip the cream too much, you are going to end up with butter. And that's fantastic, but not so much for this recipe. So you do need to keep a careful eye on the cream. So we're going to speed 3. I would imagine it's going to take about 30 seconds, but it depends how fresh your cream is. So the fresher your cream, the longer it will take to whip. But just keep a really careful eye on it because you don't want to end up with butter. You can often also hear when it changes. So yeah, we're just going to keep a really close eye on it and make sure we don't end up with butter. So starting to change. If you do end up with butter, just, use it for something else and get some more cream. That's 30 seconds, I reckon. Maybe another 5 seconds. And remember, with the Thermomix, you can always go back and do more, but you can't undo what you've already done. So less is definitely more. And so let's have a look at it. Yep, that looks pretty good. So you wouldn't want to go longer than that. That was 45 seconds. We're going to remove the butterfly whisk. And then we are going to pop that back into a bowl and set it aside. There you go. Perfect. Then the next step is to get some sour cream. Again, remember, you've started to halve the recipe, so don't forget and now use all the cream, because I've definitely done that before with the sour cream. So 200 grams of, or 100 grams of sour cream. We need 10 grams of sugar. There you go. And we need half a teaspoon of vanilla essence, or vanilla extract or vanilla paste. And I've actually made this vanilla paste in my Thermomix. You can get your hands on some vanilla beans. Homemade vanilla paste is the best. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to mix that up. So lid back on. We're going 20 seconds, speed 4. It probably won't need the whole 20 seconds. There we go. So we'll stop it at about 5 seconds because we have halved it. Rule of thumb with times is if you decrease the amount of ingredients, you can decrease the time by about 20%, and the same with increasing. So that's just mix that all up. At this point, we're going to add the cream. And then we're just going to fold it through with your spatula because you don't want to whip it anymore. So we're just folding through. There you go. And then I'll pop it into a bowl. And as soon as my pastry nests come out of the oven, we'll be able to fill them and turn them into little nests. So hand back over to you, Bridie.
Was that me? Oh, to Paula? Or Bridie? I missed that.
It can be you. I think
It can be
Paula's probably
me.
got some whipping time still. I think it's you.
I've got about 6 minutes to go.
Perfect. Perfect. Speaking of perfect, so my chocolate, it just looks like melted chocolate, exactly the way it should, but the proof is in the pudding. So at the end, there's a few little tips. You will be able to tell that your chocolate is tempered perfectly. So I'll show you what I'm doing here. I'm just making a really simple chocolate bark, and I'm just literally pouring it out onto my silicone baking mat. I've got the tray underneath it just to keep it nice and flat as I'm setting it, and I just pour it out onto the tray. And I've got a little dough cutter as well. I've got this metal one today. and it just makes such a beautiful silky melted chocolate bark. It's amazing. And funny thing, I just went to get the freeze-dried raspberries out of the pantry and the kids have been into them like little mice. So I won't be putting many raspberries on it. Now, I don't spread it out so thinly that, there we go, that's my kid hearing me say freeze-dried raspberries. Cooper, do you want to help me? So that's great, put that there. There's not enough because everyone's eaten them. Have one little, excuse me, there we go. And then I'm just going to, it's all in the mix. The bowl. I often have a little help in the kitchen. It used to really stress me out, if I'm honest, but now, despite it being not the best timing on Zoom,
I do think like that's really the best thing about our business is that we can work it around our families, and so our families are just part of our business. And I know that everybody watching from home, they've got a little person probably hanging off their leg when they cook too. So don't ever apologize because you have a little person.
But it's great. I think I include my kids in the cooking so much more now because we have a lot less mess. They can just carry on and follow the instructions, and it just makes it really, really easy. So my chocolate bark is done, and I'm just going to let that set. Just a little tip. So as tempered chocolate set, doesn't set completely flat, so you'll see that the edges actually kind of buckle up a wee bit and you'll get a bit of a wave on the edge of your chocolate. That's one way to tell that your chocolate has tempered perfectly, and the other way is you can tell by the texture, and if they were side by side it would be really easy, but you can tell with the snap. You should get a really perfect snap. Very satisfying. So
that's perfect actually, because my pastry nests are out of the oven, and what you're going to do now is you're actually going to get the pastry shaper and you're just going to push into the middle of the baskets, just flatten down, because choux pastry does puff up, and that's beautiful for the edges of the nests, but in the center you want to have that beautiful hollow. So if you just come in, give it a little push, and then what we're going to do is as soon as these have cooled, we're actually going to fill each of these hollows with our sour cream mixture. And then what we're going to do is we drain a tin of apricots, apricot halves. And basically after you fill each of them with cream, you pop the little apricot in, and it's kind of like the egg yolk in the egg. These are beautiful. They look so fancy. And, you know, if you have guests around for Easter, it's going to absolutely blow their mind. They're going to be like, wow, but they actually are so simple to make. So I can't fill them yet because obviously I don't want the sour cream to curdle because of the heat. But yeah, sour cream, apricot half. I will pop some photos up onto my social media and share with the girls so they can pop them up as well. But yeah, definitely have a go. This is a total showstopper. The other thing you can do with the choux pastry is you can just pipe it into a long strip, and this is how you make eclairs. So once they bake up, you can pop the nozzle in and inject them with some custard and then dip them in some chocolate. So that's a really fun one as well. Right, let me have a look. Paula, how are you looking?
I've just had a wee check and I'm pretty happy with it. So I've just stopped the timer. And I will show you how it's all fluffed up in there. You can see that. And then I'm just going to pour that mixture into my lined, I'm just using some of the loaf tins actually, because it gives a nice high, thick marshmallow. So I'm just going to pour half in one like that, and half in the other. And then if you want to, you could sprinkle some of the freeze-dried raspberries on now, or you could just pop it in the fridge plain. And then I usually like to leave it in the fridge overnight. I feel like the longer, the better. You're going to make sure that it's set nice and firm. And then you can cut it into pieces. You can dip it into some melted chocolate. Or I just wanted to say there's a couple of recipes that I really like on Cookie Dough that you can use this marshmallow in, and one of them is the Rocky Road, which just has some coconut in it and some nuts as well, and melted chocolate. And the other one is one that is on Recipe Community, which is just an ambrosia, which you can make with cream, yogurt, and then the chopped up marshmallows and some nice berries. Yeah.
So now Lonnie's just popped in the chat box that you need to share with us how you make your pink raspberry marshmallow, because apparently it's amazing. Can you
So you have to be careful. So with the marshmallow, as soon as you add anything to it, I mean, vanilla's fine, but as soon as if you added cocoa powder or anything like that, it starts to deflate. So if you are going to add raspberry powders or any flavorings, you want to just do it like at the last sort of 30 seconds and then pour it straight into your tray. So yeah, you can get that nice pink color. Sometimes I cheat and I use a little bit of beetroot powder as well, because it's a little bit brighter than just the raspberry, so a bit of a mixture. And yeah, then the spices, I saw your one, that looks so good, but I have tried to make chocolate marshmallow before and it's been a huge flop, and I think it's because of the fat in that cacao. It just flattens your marshmallow and it's quite disappointing because you've got all that fluff and then it suddenly deflates, and the same thing can happen with the raspberry. So
I love that. That's a great tip to share. So yeah, guys, hopefully you have learned something today. We tried to show you some things that were a little bit different, things that would, elevate your Easter game and, impress your family and your friends. If you want any of these recipes, obviously some of them are on Cookie Do, some of them were on the Recipe Community, and Paula really did a lot of, zhuzhing up of hers. So if you reach out to your consultant who invited you onto this virtual, they'll be able to point you in the right direction of these recipes. Please follow Little Bear Food, Bridie Jane, Thermodette. Paula, what's your handle?
Paula's Whole Plate.
Paula's Whole Plate, because all this week we are going to be just vomiting Easter all over you. We're very excited about it, and we just want to inspire you. Remember to tag us, because it really fills our cups to see what you're doing. Some of you may have seen we have an amazing host reward this month for the month of April. If you invite 2 friends to come and share the Thermomix with you, either in person or virtually, and one of those people makes the very wise decision to invest in a Thermomix, you are actually able to get a $99 spare bowl. They're normally $375. That is an amazing deal. Don't worry, don't go, oh, I'm not sure if my friends will buy, because it's our job to show them the Thermomix and wow them. You just get them there, we'll do the rest, and we always love to cook with you. So please reach out to your consultant. They'd love to book in a cooking experience for April. We are always looking for more consultants. So both these teams are the best teams in New Zealand. I'm a little biased, but I reckon we've got the best 2 teams in New Zealand, and we are always looking for amazing individuals to come and join us. So if you are watching us and you're thinking, hey man, I'd love to be part of that, we would love to have that conversation with you. Thank you for hopping on. We will release the recording after the class if you want to share it with anybody. Thank you, Lonnie, Bridie, and Paula, for sharing your skills with everybody. And yeah, we hope you have an amazing Easter, and we will see you again soon. See ya.